All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tim O'Donnell. I'm currently the grants chair-elect for the district. Thank you all for taking your time on Saturday morning to join us. I hope you'll find this information useful. Also on the call is Jeanette Loftus, the past district governor and current foundation chair, also known as JLo. Probably everyone knows her. Jonathan Fleeter, our grants chair, really wanted to be here today, but he'd already made some travel plans when this session was scheduled, so he couldn't make it today. So he sends his apologies. I've been asked to talk about grant best practices. Many clubs have applied for grants in the past and had successful projects, but there's still a bunch of clubs that are missing out on this great opportunity. So as we go through the presentation today, I hope you'll be inspired to start new service projects, apply for grants, and then also increase your support for the Rotary Foundation. We're gonna have another session probably in the March timeframe to talk about the details of submitting a grant in DAC-DB. We'll walk you through that step by step and make sure everyone knows how to do that. So stay tuned for that. To avoid listening to me ramble on for 40 minutes, we're gonna start today by hearing from 3 Rotarians about their club district grant projects. We're gonna hear from Karen Weiss, Steve Holmes, and Peter Hicks. And then we're gonna take what I call a look behind the curtain. We'll look at the district grant approval criteria, let everyone know what that is and make sure we're transparent about that. So we're just going to jump right in and hear from Karen first. Let's talk about some of her grants.
Good morning, everybody. So our project was called Show Up for Seniors, and we had 4 clubs participating: DeLand Breakfast, Downtown DeLand, and our new community-based Rotaract Club in DeLand. So this project was designed to help 200 low-income seniors who are living independently in an apartment complex in DeLand. Since the pandemic began, these seniors have not really been able to travel to the grocery stores even, and they've been isolated from friends and families. So the activities director at that building contacted our club president about the need there. We asked Rotarians and community members to donate items for this project, which were collected, and we stored them at a very generous Rotarian's home. We took over his man cave, actually. We inventoried those items and determined what other items we needed and could be purchased within our budget. The Rotary branded bags were ordered with, and I have it right here behind me, Believe There Is Good in the World on one side and the 4 club logos on the other side. And then one Rotarian, which turned out to be me, then purchased all of the other items using the money in our designated grant account. And I did have to check with Jonathan that we could use a debit card for that rather than checks, because when we took the seminar, the training on the grant, it said you had to have canceled checks. But Jonathan said that we were allowed to use a debit card as long as we had receipts and it showed up on the bank account. So the items we bought were all kinds of snacks, toiletries, coloring books and puzzle books, because we wanted to give them some entertainment items, sugar-free candy, dish soap, paper towels, cleaning liquid, toilet paper, chapstick, hand soap, and just much, much more. We got a lot of donations. We included a letter to the residents letting them know that people care about them. And we also put in a little scratch-off ticket for everybody so they could have a little more fun. We haven't heard if anyone won anything yet, but the activities director was really excited about that for the residents. So once our lovely bags arrived, we scheduled a bag packing on one night, and that was October 7th. And then we delivered to the residents the next night on October 8th. We had plenty of Rotarians show up for those events. And of course we had to be distanced and masked. And the other part of this was a hot meal. And the general manager of Sonny's Barbecue is in the Rotaract Club of DeLand. He donated all of the food for the meal, which was a hefty pulled pork sandwich and some chips. And the containers were all sealed with a Rotary cogwheel sticker. There were a lot of snacks that we just couldn't even fit into all the bags. So they were placed in a pantry at the facility, College Arms Towers, for the residents to access confidentially, even whenever they needed food. And we had lots of other puzzle books and everything that they could do. So our 3 events, inventory, and then the packing and the delivery, were all posted on our club Facebook page and hashtagged with the district. And we have an article that's going to appear next week in our local newspaper. So I think what made this project successful was having really good communication among the clubs and with the facility and with all of our members of the 4 clubs. It helped to have sign-up sheets to keep track of all the volunteers and the volunteer hours. It also was helpful to be very organized. We recorded everything we did, all income and expenses, not only our treasurer in QuickBooks, but also on a spreadsheet so we can double check everything. I thought it was helpful to upload all of the documents, receipts, and photos as we went along, instead of waiting to the end and having to do it all then. So I was uploading constantly. The one problem we had was not knowing when the Rotary bags would arrive. So it was difficult to schedule the bag packing and delivery until all of the bags were in hand. And we couldn't order them until the grant was approved. So as soon as it was, we ordered the bags, but it took a lot longer than expected, with COVID and shipping. So we had to have all 4 clubs on standby until they came. So the waiting, everyone found kind of tedious and difficult. Learning how to navigate the district website was really helpful in the training and just some trial and error, and calling Jonathan. I think he got tired of getting my emails and my phone calls, because whenever I became anxious about something, I would call him and he would clear that up. Now that's going to fall on Tim next year. So good luck, Tim. I'll be submitting the final report after we get this month's bank statement and after the article appears in the Beacon. And I'll know if I had any problems at all with the grant after that, after my final submission. I've actually written the final report. I just haven't put it into the site, because that's one thing I find. You can't put it in actually and save it until you're ready to send it. So I hope we didn't have any problems. And thank you so much to the district for approving that grant. We were glad we had it ready to go when we were notified there was money available.
Thank you, Karen. And it's always a pleasure to be able to help people out. We're always available. And by the way, Art McQueen is in charge of the audit committee. So be wary of that. Art's gonna be checking out your thing. One thing that Jeanette reminded me I forgot to mention, as we proceed today, please type any questions you have into the chat window. And depending on the time and the scope of the question, we'll either answer them right away, or we'll get back to you after the session. If it's a club specific thing about your specific grant, it may be appropriate to all discuss it. It may be appropriate just to discuss it afterwards with your club. All right, so thanks again, Karen. Next up, we have Steve Holmes from the Edgewater Club. He's going to be talking about getting musical instruments in a park, which sounds very, very fun.
Good morning, everybody. You go ahead and unmute if you like. I don't mind hearing your dogs bark or planes going over. It's all fine. I miss seeing you all in person, actually. I'm going to give you a little overview of our project, how it started, how it progressed, and how it finished. And then I'll give you a little information on the grant process. And then if there's some questions, please feel free to ask me, or later on, Art McQueen's very knowledgeable in this area. Our project actually started in 2018, when a lot of members came back from Montreal, and they brought back brochures of outdoor instruments for children, adults, anyone to play, and they were placed in parks and various locations around cities. And I looked at them and I said, boy, this is really interesting. I don't know how to play any instrument. I don't know of any instrument type park in our area. I started to look into this. And it turned out that the cost was going to be roughly around $20,000. I said, well, where can we put this? A couple parks in Edgewater I looked at, and the community leaders weren't as interested as I expected. And as it turns out, we were working with the Miracle League, a group of people in New Smyrna Beach that work with disabled children. They had built a uh, baseball diamond with hard surface so that any child with any disability would be able to play. And adjacent to that baseball diamond was an area that they were going to develop. I said, well, this is going to be perfect. So, we started to move forward, looking to move this musical instrument idea into New Smyrna. So now is where we're going to get 20 grand. Edgewater is a small club. We have some pretty good fundraisers. We had a fair bank account, but we certainly didn't have 20,000. I said, let's try and use maybe grant money. And you people have all heard from the grant seminars and that. It's your money. All the grant money that goes in is your money. Use it. Find a way to get it. If you have a project, go for this grant money. It's extremely important to use your money. So we went ahead. I said, I think my club can generate $5,000 towards a project. I'm still 15,000 short. So I looked for a partner. I went ahead and put the little slide presentation together, and I approached our neighbors naturally, New Smyrna Beach, which was where the instruments ultimately would be. And I gave a little presentation at their meeting. I'm not fond of asking for money, but I was walking out the door, and all of a sudden the president, Charlie Miller, he said, Steve, want to step back in here for a moment? I said, sure. I was waiting for the bad news. He said, we've approved $5,000 for your project. I said, really? That's fantastic. So with that, we went ahead and got going. We ordered the instruments. We had to work with the city, so we didn't have a lot of hands-on because of liability and so forth. Most of those things had to be handled through engineering of the instrument people. We wound up putting up to 20,000. I used both presidents, are the only ones that would be to sign the checks. That was Diane Glennon and Jewel Fair of New Smyrna Beach. They signed dual signatures on the checks so that everything was above board. And as Karen had stated, we kept a spreadsheet with every transaction, every dollar in, every dollar out, so that when the project was finished with, it was all perfectly transparent and legitimate. We did have to come up with the 20,000 in advance. And then once it was done, the district was kind enough to get the check to us in about 10 days, which I thought was pretty quick and very generous of them. And back to the musical instruments. We now have a park in New Smyrna Beach, part of the sports complex, where not only do children play and thousands of people visit daily and weekly to see games and different things, but they can walk through this park with 10 different musical instruments. They can play a tune. They can, if they're accomplished, they can play for children. The children come up in wheelchairs and play. It is really an unbelievably uh, beautiful setting, and we are absolutely proud of our accomplishments there. So that's the long and the short of it. How am I doing on time there, Tim?
You're good.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the grant process. That's my project. I'm very proud of it. New Smyrna is very proud of it, and they mention it in all their advertising. Um, to go for the grant, the first thing you want to do is go to DACDB, and don't go to your club yet, but go to district. And there'll be a district icon that has district grants. Under that icon is all the clubs that have applied for a grant. And you click on any one of the clubs, if it's defibrillators, if it's musical instruments, if it's renovating a nursing home, whatever it might be that you're interested in, go ahead and click on that particular club. And it'll give the complete description of what we had to write to write the grant, so that you have an idea of what's involved in it. You don't have to be overly wordy with it. You just need to put in what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how you're going to fund it, and how many people are going to be involved in it. It's not that difficult. When you actually start the grant, which will be in under your club, under my grant section, you'll go to the grants, your grant, after you've given all this, and you'll start. The first thing, you do not ever want to spend $1 of your money or your partner's money until the grant's approved. Keep that in mind. That's very important. Not one single dollar. You can do all the planning in advance, but don't spend any money at all until it's approved. Once it's approved, according to your grant structure, it's a go. So you're all good to go there, and you can go ahead and move forward from beginning to end. And depending on your project, it will go smoothly because you are the best people in the world to put together a project like this. So that's about all I have right now. You'll hear a lot more about grants through the grant seminars and so forth. So if any of you have any questions, ask myself or Karen at this time or whenever Tim would allow. And I thank you for your time. I miss you guys. I want to see you in person next time.
Thanks, Steve. Great job. Someone had a comment in chat. I should have added pictures to this presentation of your project. It's really interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Thank you so much. All right, next, we're going to have Peter Hicks from the Jacksonville Club talking about a youth crisis center.
Yeah, I would like to thanks to Tim for inviting me to speak. We're part of the mighty downtown Jacksonville Club. We have a lot of members, a lot of moving parts. And I'll give you a brief description kind of how this all came together. It was in April. Our president, we were all working from home. April seems like years ago. We were all working from home, and I remember standing in my driveway talking to our president of Rotary, talking about a small gift to the Youth Crisis Center. And it evolved into a $25,000 gift from our club going to the match of the 25. And this was to pay for PPE for the Youth Crisis Center, laptops for the residents, and computers, sort of like a computer lab for the residents, and then a security system. So the Youth Crisis Center, just if you don't know, is I'm actually employed there. So we were trying to get very non-political in our club of basically saying this was an idea from Tom Bryan, who was the president of our club at that time. But he called me up and he says, "What do you guys need?" And I said, "Well, we deal with mental health and homelessness. We have a shelter." I kind of listed all the things, and he said, "Can you take the bull by the horn? We're going to go to our club. Since we're not meeting, we're going to ask our club to make a donation on their dues and make a donation to this project. And we're going to put this in." It's a very powerful statement when the club gets together, especially a large club like the Jacksonville Club, and really supports this project. Like Steve and Karen, what my suggestion is, no matter how big or small, attend the training, go into the system. I'm lucky because I've been in Rotary for 20 years all across the nation. I'm also in fundraising, so I'm very familiar with the process of applications, grant applications. And I've done anywhere from large grant applications to very small. The Rotary District Grant match is a very comprehensive application. So my advice to anybody when you're doing this process, just like everybody seems like, and Tim, I feel sorry for you already, because we all reached out to Jonathan. Myself, our executive with our club, Ms. Sherry's talked to Jonathan a bunch of times. So Tim's going to have a large job next year. And we've been communicating with Art McQueen. We've been communicating with a lot of the committee members throughout the whole process. And we're still in the process. So currently the project is probably like 80% done. So what we're trying to do is we're wrapping up. We're taking pictures. I need to get our Rotarians out. Rich Turnbull and Marie came out and did a check presentation. Really wanted trying to involve everybody into this because the Youth Crisis Center is a very secured location. So it's not like you can come see the kids, but we're working on signage right now. And that's kind of where I wanted to go towards my presentation is there's a lot of moving parts. Myself and Sherry Omer are constantly in communication of how to best um, tackle these requirements, because we want to make sure that we're in the up and up. We're making sure we have all documentation. Um, so when you attend the grant seminar, when you attend, when you're talking to your people, it's best that, and kind of our club is, we put it on myself for this project, and we actually got a Rotary match for a different project, and we gave it that responsibility to somebody else. I think sometimes when you have too many hands in the pot, can muddy the water a little bit. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that I'm constantly active with looking on there, uploading the materials, making sure everything is in the system, making sure we're doing exactly what we say. Our other club members are doing the exact same thing, and they're checking up on me. So I think in this process is ask a lot of questions. Find out what, what's the parameters. I always talk about in the fundraising world, champions. Who's championing your effort? I was lucky to get our leadership of our club to really back this and say, in April, and say, man, we got to do this. Just like Steve said, don't spend a dime until you hit that letter and they tell you spend a dime. It's very important. So we all know this up front, that we better not spend a dime until we're approved and we're ready to go, which we did. We held off. And then use the talents of your club. I'm lucky enough to be in the fundraising world or nonprofit world, and I got tapped by Jim Agee and Sherry and Jerry Kelly and Tom Bryan, all of our leadership, and said, hey, we need you to do this. We need you to be a part of this committee. We need you to be this. And I think as Rotarians that we're a volunteer organization, but we need to tap the talents, not just the treasure, but the talents of our members to tackle these projects. So I was just going by what Karen and Steve, I didn't want to repeat everything they said because they said what is needed to say. Even though our club is a little bit larger and our budget was a little bit larger, you still run into those same issues of you got to make sure you document, you got to make sure you upload everything. You have to make sure that your project meets the standards of what the district is applying. And then you got to ask questions. You got to ask questions in your club. You got to ask questions into the district committee. You got to reach out. You got to keep that communication going because that's the most vital thing.
All right. Thank you so much, Peter. And everyone, request someone out there can hear some background noise. I couldn't figure out who it was. So if everyone who's not speaking can please mute themselves, I would appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Speaking with district leadership, one thing I want to mention that Peter mentioned, he said he worked for the organization that the grant was helping. A lot of people think that that's a conflict of interest. It may not be okay. It is okay. Just in the grant process, you have to document that. Every club is asked to fill out a conflict of interest form to highlight if there are any. In this case, there was, so it was documented that Peter does work for that organization. So everything's above board and it's absolutely fine. But that's the reason why we asked for that form.
Yeah, and I was going to say, sorry, Tim, I was actually that was on my list to talk about. Transparency is key. We wanted to be very transparent that I was working for it, the club. Even in our club, we were very transparent. And, obviously, if you guys are in your club, you know where everybody kind of does for a living. But we were very upfront and honest and said, okay, Pete's helping with this project. I'm doing more of the back end. Obviously, I'm not approving it on our club level, but I'm working in the system to make sure that we hit all of our criteria, make sure that we can get the funds secured.
Right. And of course, I mean, it makes sense that would still be okay because so many organizations that are doing good in the world, there are Rotarians working there. So we couldn't exclude that completely. That'd be silly. All right. So getting onto the criteria a little bit, when I speak with district leadership over the years, I've heard things like the project must be sustainable. The district likes it when clubs partner with each other. The district likes it when clubs are donating more to the foundation. I've stored these things away in my brain, and I regurgitate them to other club members when we're discussing a possible project. Now that I'm part of the grant process, I thought it would be good to share the actual criteria used by the district so everyone has the same information. First, let's cover who approves the grants. Many of you have seen this before in training, but it does bear repeating for new people. The district grants are reviewed and awarded by the district share committee. Since it's capitalized, I assume it's an acronym and share stands for something. I honestly have no idea if it does or what it is, but there will be bonus points if you happen to know the answer to that. As you can see, the share committee is made up of the current and future leaders of the district, the governors, the grants chair, and the foundation chair, and representatives from the 3 highest per capita giving clubs and the 2 highest total giving clubs in the annual fund. Those 2 happen to be big clubs usually, but the 3 highest per capita clubs can be the smallest club in the district. It's just a question of how much your club is donating per person. So that keeps it nice and fair and above board. Before I continue, note that the criteria I'm about to talk about is subject to change. It's the criteria we're currently using. It could change in the future. Also, if you have a great project in mind and you sit there and think, I don't think it'll fit into the list very well, just contact Jonathan, Jeanette, or myself. We're always happy to discuss any grant possibilities. All right, let's jump right into the criteria. The areas of focus. Rotary does have the areas of focus that they want to obviously focus on. There are 7 now. Usually we've talked for years, we talked about the 6 areas of focus. As you can, I'm not going to bother reading them. You guys can read just as well as I can. But the bottom one is the new one, supporting the environment. That was added to Rotary this year. So if you have any projects that fall into that, they're now eligible for district grants. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Rotary project that does not fall into one of these areas. Your project may fall into more than one. And if so, it should be documented in the grant application.
And as a note, supporting the environment, actually, those district grants and global grants will be available as of July 1st, 2021. So they would be eligible for the next grant cycle.
Correct. Yes.
But sometimes we get grants that people are applying for grants throughout the year for unused money. So we would not be able to support that this year.
Good point. Thank you very much. Yeah, I was thinking next year. Sorry. I'm trying to give you an example of a project that did fall into multiple areas. One was there was a grant. I think it was actually a global grant, but still applies. There was a nursing school that was being built in Honduras, and there was a grant to provide the water and sanitation system for the school. And women from remote villages travel to the school. They're trained for a period of time, and then they return to their homes. And this falls into at least 3 areas that I could think of: disease prevention and treatment. Obviously, you're sending qualified nurses to treat people. Maternal and child health, because you have the nurses doing prenatal care, helping the delivery and making sure the babies are okay. And you also have economic and community development, because the nurses now have a career, they have a job. A lot of them go back and they start clinics, which are small businesses, and then they're hiring support staff and it's a boost to the economy. That falls into 3 areas. Next slide. All right. And the next criteria is the number of beneficiaries served annually. This is sometimes a tough number to quantify. For example, if you're providing a commercial refrigerator to a food pantry that serves 200 families a week, do you need to determine how many times the same people visit the food pantry and track the number of people in that house down to every family? I would say no, you don't have to do that. So follow the 4-way test, is it the truth, and give your best estimate. I was looking at the numbers, like St. Johns County has an average of 3.2 people per house. So in that case, take the 200 times the 3.2 and you estimate it's 640 people that they're helping. You don't have to get a huge number. And as proof that there's always room for improvement in the process, while preparing this, I found a discrepancy in the share committee's rating system and the application process in DACDB. The application does not specify annually when asking for numbers served. So I've been on some grants where we filled out the numbers and said, okay, the life of the grant is 10 years. So we figured how many people we're helping per year for 10 years. And that was the huge number that got questioned. But the right criteria is annually. So we'll get that resolved before the next grant cycle and make it really obvious what the criteria is. All right, next is sustainability. This is really important. Rotary is an efficient organization and a very good steward of the funds we donate. When submitting grants, it's important to think about who will maintain any equipment purchased and who does repairs. A new example is this Jacksonville Club is doing a new minivan for Hubbard House, an emergency shelter for families to drive people to work, to medical appointments, to school, job interviews. We don't want to buy a vehicle for an organization which will not be performing regular maintenance. They're not going to do oil changes. They're not going to do whatever. And the car is dead in a few years. It'd be a waste of our money. So the grant details who is responsible for maintenance, future parts, even down to who's buying the tires for the car when they need them. Hubbard House last van lasted for 14 years. So the expectation is this one will last just as long. The Jacksonville Club documented all this very well in the grant application. So we knew exactly who it was, and the project's very sustainable. Some examples of kind of non-sustainable projects: purchasing books for students in the school, buying food to support a local food pantry, or Christmas gifts for children. While these are very worthwhile and great things, they're a one-time benefit. And the food needs to be replaced again the next week or the next month. But note, for this year, the Rotary Foundation did make an exception for food purchases due to the COVID-19 shutdowns, but that's not guaranteed to be happening in the future. So, you know, sustainability is even more important to consider when dealing with grants for non-US projects. You need to be really careful about that your in-country partners will have access to replacement parts and expertise to repair the equipment. Not every village in South America, for example, can just order things from Amazon and call the local repairman to come out and fix something if it breaks down. So that's something you definitely have to ask in any project overseas. Club involvement. Rotary is, of course, above all, a service organization. It's great when Rotarians roll up their sleeves and personally invest their time and sweat in a project. Not only does it keep your members active, but can also attract new members as you convert non-member volunteers into members. My club's had so many people join our organization because of the service projects we do. There are grant projects where you need active involvement a lot, and some where it's not that obvious what you need. For example, if you're purchasing a playground for a local park, you may want to have that professionally installed for liability reasons, but club members can possibly do prep work, adding mulch, plants on the perimeters, and adding meals. There's a recent project, Port in the Storm Homeless Outdoor Learning Area is the name of it, done by St. Augustine Beach, St. Augustine, and St. John's, and they documented in the grant process exactly what the Rotarians would be doing, and things like installing some pavers, doing some site prep, doing plants, providing barbecue, lunches, and things like that. So they did a great job with that one.
And we have 2 minutes to wrap up.
That's it. Oh,
Go fast.
I'll go fast. Okay, I can do that. Club partnering, really important. You can take your grant and you have $1,000. You ask another club for another 500, another club for 500, get an extra 500 match. You've increased your money an awful lot. So club partnering is big. Public image, really important. There's a project going on with we're buying a refrigerated truck for a food pantry. I forget, Palaca Sunrise and St. Augustine. They're going to put a wrapper on the truck. So for 10 years, this truck is going to be driving around with the Rotary name on it. Great public image. You want to do social media, press releases, whatever you can to get the word out. It helps with membership. It helps with donations. Grant request is total percent of budget. Some projects are really expensive per individual help, and some are really cheap. There's a recent food grant for COVID where the cost ended up being $1.64 per person per week for food, which is a great return on our investment. Other ones are more expensive. Budget per beneficiaries. Oh, I'm sorry. The previous one, I was reading the wrong title. The grant requests a total budget. There's some clubs where, a lot of clubs ask for 50% of the budget. There's a project, if memory serves, I forget the numbers, $90,000 for a handicapped baseball field. And they're only asking for 15,000 of that, which is 17%. So that'll be rated a little higher than the clubs that are asking for the 50%. Measurable impact, the impact, if you want it to be measurable as much as possible, there in the refrigerated truck example, we can measure on a yearly basis, how many pickups they did, how many deliveries they did, how many people they've helped, how many volunteers they've had driving the trucks. So you can get some very measurable things over the 10-year lifetime of the truck. And of course, there's this one criteria of, I just like it. The grant committee members get to give their opinion, whether or not they like it, whether they don't, and they give a rating for that. And of course, supporting the foundation is another important criteria per capita. So it's fair between small clubs and large clubs. The more you give to the foundation, the higher the ranking you get for this category. Some important dates to consider. April 30th is the deadline. So don't wait until the end of April to prepare your grant and submit it. Ask questions early, submit it early. Don't submit it on April 31st or April 32nd. Make sure it's April 30th at the latest. And then as I think Steve mentioned, don't start the project until the funds are approved by RI, not just the district. And here's the foundation grants leadership contact information. So we're always available to help. As several people mentioned, there were phone calls with Jonathan, emails. We're always available to help. How am I on time?
You're a minute over, but that's okay. We're
Sorry.
done.
All right.
That's all right. If there's any questions, Tim's email is there. I also put it in the chat. So feel free to email Tim, Jonathan, or myself, or give us a telephone call, and we'll help you out wherever we can. Like as Tim had mentioned, or I think Steve had mentioned, this is your money. This is money you guys have donated to the foundation. So let's figure out how to use it and do good in your communities. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks, Tim.
And then if anybody's staying on
Larry.
for the next foundation session, that'll be rolling out in the next few minutes. So you can just stay on this line, or you can move over to another Zoom link. All righty, well, it's 10:30, and in the interest of starting on time, we're going to get started on this session. I'm going to share my screen. All righty, you can all see that? Okay, if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat box. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Jeanette Loftus, and I am the current District Foundation Chair. It is an amazing, amazing role that I'm playing this year because I'm helping you all do good in your communities and communities across the world. And I am quite honored to have been asked to do that. So I will be presenting today along with my partner in crime today is past president of the Orange Park Club and former assistant governor, Larry Claybor. Larry is also serving this year, he's serving the Rotary Foundation as our district polio, Paul Harris Society Chair. So welcome Larry and welcome all. So Larry, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jeanette, and thanks to everybody to hang around with us today and learn a little bit more about the Rotary Foundation. We do have a mission of what we really want to accomplish through the foundation, and the mission of Rotary Foundation International is to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through the improvement of health, the support of education, and the alleviation of poverty. Since it was founded more than 100 years ago, the foundation has spent more than $4 billion on life-changing sustainable projects. With your help, we can make lives better in your community and around the world. Some particulars about what the foundation has done. You can see the total amount of money that we've helped with, which is phenomenal. And that, of course, we are an independent foundation outside of Rotary International. And then we look at what good our foundation has done. And I hope some of you know what Charity Navigator is. Charity Navigator is an independent firm that ranks charities and how well they do with their efforts. once again, for 12 years in a row now, Charity Navigator has given the Rotary Foundation a 4-star rating. And this past rating was 100 points out of 100 points. That's how well the foundation does around the world. 92% of every dollar that is brought into the foundation is spent on programs, and that's really a phenomenal number. So, next up. The Rotary Foundation helps clubs coordinate and fund viable humanitarian projects and educational opportunities. But how do we do that? We did do that through our grants that are given back to the clubs for local and global projects. And that helps us do good in the world. Starting this year, there are actually 7 areas of focus. As long as your club project fits into one of these areas, you can apply for a grant, like Tim was speaking of in his program. There is a new area of focus this year that is the environment, and I'm going to have Jeanette talk a little bit about that.
So the Rotary Foundation recognizes the importance of sustaining our environment and making sure it remains sustainable for future generations. And although some of our projects in the past have touched on the environment, we never really identified environmental causes as its own area of focus. So they are giving us permission to do that. The Board of Trustees voted to add that 7th area of focus, and that will start July 1st, 2021. So if you're applying for a district grant, it would be a district grant for the 2021-2022 year, or if you're applying for a global grant, it would have to be after July 1st of 2021. And there's more information available on that on rotary.org for those of you who'd like more information.
So the foundation programs, there are 6 actual programs that we offer through our district. And the reason for this is for developing the next generation of leaders, providing funding to make the world a better place, and making peace a priority.
Okay, and now I'm going to go into those in a little bit more detail, starting with these 2. A global grant is a grant of at least $30,000 minimum, and that is applied directly through the Rotary Foundation. It has to be concentrated in one of our areas of focus. And I say that because really for a global grant, their criteria is much more stringent. They are going to ask that you actually prove and submit proof that you have impacted that area of focus. So if you're considering a global grant, I would encourage you only to consider applying it towards one area of focus, because it can become a lot of work to make that proof, happen. And for district grants, I am going to introduce our district grant chair-elect, Tim O'Donnell. He'll say a few words about our district grants here in District 6970.
Hi, all. We have a district grant program that any club can apply for. You're eligible up to it's a 50% match. And we'll have a session in March to go over how to apply for the grant. You do it through DACDB. It seems intimidating, but it's not that hard. And the current grant chair, Jonathan, and I are both available to help any club with the grants. We can come in person and do a presentation to you guys, or just help via phone calls or email. We're here to help.
Thank you. And the district grant deadline is April 30th.
April 30th.
2021. And if you're considering applying for a district grant, do not let it be intimidating. Please reach out to Tim or Jonathan or myself. We are all here to help you. So no question, no project is, a silly question or project. Let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do to make it happen and to help your clubs stretch your money. Alrighty, the next Rotary Foundation programs focus on the education aspect of the foundation. Global Grant Scholarships allows the Rotary Foundation to help subsidize a master's program for college graduates. Ideally, this should be somebody, it has to be somebody concentrating in one of those 6 areas of focus, but it should be somebody who has some experience already working in a particular field that talks about those 6 areas of focus. So, or 7 areas, sorry, now. So keep in mind in your travels and, speaking to people, some young adults that we come across every day in our own communities could be potential Global Grant scholarships. It cannot be a direct descendant of a Rotarian. So sorry about that. Vocational training teams is a training team that actually goes out typically in conjunction with a Global Grant to a foreign place, or consequently, we can bring a vocational training team in to train a team of doctors or teachers or something like that, and water engineers. So that's typically it's a training team that we can also get funding for through the Rotary Foundation. And we also have we have 7 Rotary Centers for International Study for Peace and Conflict Resolution throughout the world. Specifically concentrating, of course, in peace. Most of those are graduate programs. There is one certificate program that could be appropriate for somebody maybe in your own community. It could be a teacher, a school principal, a school resource officer, or a sheriff, something like that, or deputy that might really have an interest and passion for peace and conflict resolution. So keep that in mind as well. Foundation programs, of course, hopefully we all understand and know and love our End Polio Now campaign, which is eradicating polio throughout the world. I am happy to say that we just in this past August declared Nigeria to be polio free. So we are down to only 2 polio endemic countries, and that is Afghanistan and Pakistan. We are blessed to have several partners that have been helping us on this crusade since 1985, and that is Center for Disease Control, UNICEF, World Health Organization, of course, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who match your contributions 2 to 1 for every dollar they contribute to. And we also have partnered with a lot of individual governments and community leaders and religious leaders across the world. So if you're interested in learning more about polio and what we do, please visit endpolionow.org. I know we're going to have a great guest speaker coming up after this session on polio too. Our End Polio Now chair for the Rotary Foundation will be speaking to you. So I'm looking forward to that presentation. And we are on our countdown to history. We are 99.9% free of polio, and we won't stop. We won't give up until it is eliminated. So thank you all for your continued contributions. Larry, back to you.
Okay, so now where does the money come from? Where does it go? Obviously, the money comes from the Rotarians that are donated to the foundation. And once it gets to the foundation, it is redistributed. And this is how we can contribute. Obviously, cash through our clubs. We can do reoccurring gifts through Rotary Direct at myrotary.org. We can ask our boss to match it. Something I've learned recently about is the IRA mandatory distributions, where some folks are having part of their, before they receive their mandatory distribution, they're designating a certain portion to go right to the Rotary Foundation. If it happens to be $1,000, that would make you eligible for a Paul Harris Society membership. There's also a Rotary credit card, which I believe we get a percentage back from the spending amount. Marketable securities. Jeanette, I don't know if you have anything on these other ones here.
Well, I mean, basically the Rotary Foundation will take your assets, whether it be real estate. They're pretty particular with the real estate assets because they don't want to become realtors and, in that regard. But there are numerous ways where we can work with the major gift and endowment team at the Rotary Foundation. We can structure annuities that will continue to pay. For example, I know of someone who sold, a substantial condo that was an investment, and instead of taking the money himself, they actually donated it to the Rotary Foundation, and they're getting a 4% return as an annuity on that. So the money went directly from the sale of that property directly to the Rotary Foundation. There were no capital gains. He didn't have to pay any tax on it. And he's getting 4% back as a life annuity till he and his wife are no longer. So that's, things like that. If you're coming across people in your clubs or you yourself, if you have an idea, you want to talk about it, our major gift officer, our major gift and endowment chair this year is past District Governor Ken Baker. I believe Ken is probably on this call, but he'd be happy to help you work through any of those things.
Great. So where do your donations go? They go either to the annual giving, to the restricted giving, or to the endowment fund.
Okay, let's take a look at those individually, shall we? So annual giving is typically where a lot of our Rotarians spend their money. We also call that the annual fund when we make a donation to the Rotary Foundation. That money is sent to the Rotary Foundation, and it actually is invested by the foundation for 3 years. For those 3 years, the interest helps to fund the operations of the Rotary Foundation. After 3 years, 50% of that money comes back to the district. And this is what ties into your district grant funds. And this is where it gets exciting when we start giving, from our hearts, and we're giving to the foundation. And when I say this money is your money to spend at the club level, this is where it comes from, the bucket it comes from. So 50% of that comes back for the district to use. Out of that 50%, our share committee has almost always committed, that I know of, 50% to be used specifically for district grants. The other 50% is used for global grants that you may want to do. And that 50% max is set by the foundation, not by us. And that is called our share. The other 50% of what we donate after 3 years goes to the World Fund, and that's the money that the Rotary Foundation helps match in our global grants that you guys come up with. And those global grants all start at the club level. So again, if you're out and about and you're hearing about some of these great projects and something that we can do internationally, because we cannot do a project within our own borders, it has to be an international project that goes through a global grant to the World Fund. Are there any, 5% is used to replenish. It's kind of set aside out of that 50%. 5% is set aside in the event that we have a downturn in the market and we need to tap into some of those reserves to help fund your projects. That's important to know.
Great, that's something I like to call feed trough logic.
Okay.
Going up 30 years.
Not sure who that is, but you do get Paul Harris Fellow credit for all of your gifts to the annual fund. And you also get per capita credit for your club. Your club gets per capita credit for that as well. Are there any questions on this slide before we move on? A lot of information. No? How much, Bo wants to know, how much is given to the district each year for DDF? We'll use round numbers, Bo. That's a great question. Let's say we give 550, usually the district, all of our Rotarians in our district typically give between $550 and $600,000 per year to the Rotary Foundation. So we'll use 600,000 because it's a rounder number. So after 3 years, 50% of that, so 300,000 would come back to the district. And out of that 300,000 as DDF, out of that 300,000, 150,000 would be available for district grants specifically for the clubs. Joyce Pepin, how can I, Foundation Club Giving Reports. If anybody has any questions on your individual foundation giving, only you can see that at myrotary.org. At a club level, if you need some help finding those reports, I've become kind of a guru on foundation giving reports these days. So please feel free to reach out to me, call me. I can walk you through that. Okay, so the next bucket of giving is restricted giving. And restricted giving, the best example of this is polio. And that none of that is considered for DDF, okay? None of that comes back is because it is specifically restricted, and 100% goes to the World Fund for that specified project. Our most common one is polio, but you do earn Paul Harris credit for that. It does not count towards your per capita credit for your club. Any questions? An endowment is a gift that you make to the Rotary Foundation. Does not count towards the DDF. Only interest is used to fund our global projects, and you do not receive Paul Harris credit for that. But it's a way, in fact, the Rotary Foundation just started, if you donate $25,000 to an endowment, you can actually name that endowment after whatever name or cause you like.
Bo's got another question.
Uh-huh. What is
I
that?
was wondering if the district does not use the annual DDF, where do we lose it?
Great question. No, we do not lose our DDF. Our DDF stays with us. If we do not use our DDF for district grants, so if we allocate 150 or that 50%, say it's 150,000 in that earlier example, and we don't use that whole bucket of district grants, that district grant bucket money moves over to our World Fund bucket, and we can use that for polio giving, and we can use that to fund global grant projects, global scholars, things like that. We do not lose it. It stays within the district, within our control. Great questions. I like them. This is the goal of the Rotary Foundation, to increase our endowment to $2.025 billion by the year 2025.
And Lori had a question, how much of our DDF are we actually using?
We are very good stewards of our money, and we are right down to the wire most years. The DDF for district grants, we use virtually 100% of it. I think last year we may have had $900 left over, that only because a club project that thought they were going to be funded, something happened to it, or it was less than they thought, but it came right down to the wire. And the other bucket in the World Fund for global grants, right now we have, at the end of last year, we had just about all of it accounted for. So you guys are doing a good job looking for projects, finding projects, and getting them passed through the Rotary Foundation. Okay, Larry.
Okay, so this Paul Harris guy, who the heck is he anyways? I'm just going to read from a little bit of a bio back here that I have. Rotary started with the vision of one man, Paul Harris. After setting up his law practice in Chicago, Harris gathered several business associates to discuss the idea of forming an organization for local professionals. He envisioned a place where professionals of diverse backgrounds could exchange ideas and form meaningful lifelong friendships. On February 23rd, 1905, Harris and three of his buddies gathered at room 711 of the Unity Building in downtown Chicago. That was the first Rotary Club meeting. In February of 1907, Harris was elected the third president of the Rotary Club of Chicago, a position he held until the fall of 1908. Toward the end of his club presidency, Harris worked to expand Rotary beyond Chicago, and by 1910, Rotary had expanded to several other major cities. Harris himself passed away on January 27th of 1947 in Chicago at the age of 78. Before his death, he made it known that he preferred contributions to the Rotary Foundation in lieu of flowers. Upon news of his death, Rotary created a Paul Harris Memorial Fund as a way to solicit the donations. This eventually led to what we all know as the Paul Harris Fellow Recognition. Paul Harris Fellow Recognition acknowledges individuals who contribute or have contributed contributions made in their name of $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation. Rotary established the recognition in 1957 to encourage and show appreciation for all that contributed. So there are ways that we can contribute to the Rotary Foundation. And we'll just kind of briefly go through all these. A sustaining member is anyone who contributes $100 or more per year to the annual fund is automatically recognized as a Rotary Foundation sustaining member. A Paul Harris Fellow is a donor of $1,000 or more to the annual fund, Polio Plus, or an approved foundation grant, or people who have that amount contributed in their name can be recognized as Paul Harris Fellows. Paul Harris Society are donors who commit $1,000 every year or more to the annual fund, Polio Plus, or an approved foundation grant. A major donor is someone recognized a couple or an individual with combined personal or cumulative giving has reached $10,000, and all outright contributions made to the foundation are included in this goal, regardless of the gift designation. Arch Clump Society members have cumulative gifts of $250,000 or more to qualify them for the Arch Clump Society. A benefactor, you may become a benefactor by making the permanent fund a beneficiary in your estate plans or by donating $1,000 or more to the fund outright. A bequest society member are couples or individuals who have made commitments of $10,000 or more in their estate plans, such as in a will, a living trust, or through whole or universal life insurance, can become bequest society members. Jeanette?
All righty. Thank you, Larry. Any questions before we move on from that? Because that's a lot of, we love our acronyms and, we love all this stuff. The major donor, it's important to note that it is a minimum of 10,000 cash. So sometimes we are given points to make ourselves Paul Harris Fellows, or to someone, a family member or another Rotarian. Those points do not count. It has to be cash, as does the Arch Clump Society. And the benefactor and the bequest society, it is the easiest way to give, and you give from the heart, because when you're gone, you're not going to miss it, right? So I remember for years that still, I'm still raising a family. I've got a son in college, and Tracy and I didn't have the cash, but I said, you know what? They're not going to miss it when I'm gone. And if they do, I don't care, because I'm not going to be here to listen to them complain that they're not getting some of that money. So benefactor is $1,000 contribution. It's such a slam dunk, easy thing to do. And a bequest society, as Larry said, is a $10,000 minimum. But, please, just maybe consider that in your estate planning. So an E-Ray Club is every member, it's a recognition given by the Rotary Foundation each year, where every member of the club gives a minimum of $25 to the annual fund. Okay.
Jeanette, there was a question about what's the process to notify the foundation about Request Society?
There is a form that's available online. You can go in on rotary.org. There's also a physical form I can send to anyone. So if somebody would like that, email me and I will make sure that gets over to you. The other thing you can do is call or email past District Governor Ken Baker, because that is his area of expertise this year, and he'd be glad to help you complete those forms as well. All righty. Any more questions? Okay. 100% Sustaining Club is just that. 100% of the members of the club have contributed $100 to the Rotary Foundation in that given year. 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club is, well, we have several clubs in our district who are 100% Paul Harris Fellow clubs. It's a club who at one point in time, one day in time, 100% of their members are Paul Harris Fellows. And once you achieve this, it can never be taken away from you. It's a snapshot, one day in time. It's a great thing to strive for. If your club has not done it, some clubs have done it more than once. If you are getting close to that, if you want to have look at your contribution summary reports, I'd be glad to go over those with you, and we can see if we can make that happen for your club. And it's there's a few different ways that clubs have done to get to that. Sometimes they do a point match. If somebody contributes, if somebody's within $500, say, of becoming a Paul Harris Fellow, they may say to that person, okay, you're $500 away, the club will match dollar for dollar. You put in $250, we'll give you 250 points. Bam, you become a Paul Harris Fellow. Other clubs have used some point transfers for club projects, or as a way of recognizing somebody at the end of the year for a job well done or a project well done. Think about transferring some Paul Harris Fellow points to maybe some new Rotarians who are starting a project as a means to reward them and kind of get them excited about making contributions to the foundation. So there's a variety of clever ways we can do what we can do to help you achieve that. So if you're interested, come see me.
Jeanette, I know when during my year as club president, we realized that our club had accumulated over 15,000 points. And so we made an effort that year to get new club members to either match or to help new club members so that our club could become 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club. And it was very easy to do. I believe a lot of clubs may not realize how many points the club itself has.
Yep, the club itself does have points, and those points are available on the club recognition summary on the foundation reports. Laura wants to know, how can we donate points and credits? There's a form that the Rotary Foundation has you fill out that I have available, and I will make sure it's available on our district foundation website. If it's not there, I'll make sure it's available. And it is done through a form, and that is sent to Rotary support, and is not done through DAC-DB, and the point transfer is a minimum of 100 points to transfer. Any other questions? Okay, I think that answers that. 100% Paul Harris Society Club. I think we have one club in our district that's 100% Paul Harris Society Club. Isn't that right, Larry?
I think there might be one. I know the Orange Park Sunset has been very close. I don't know if they are currently or not.
Orange Park Sunset on the call? I thought I saw Ralph on the earlier
Ralph's
call.
here. Ralph? Want to chime in on that?
About being 100% club.
Yeah,
yes.
Are you 100% Paul Harris Society Club?
We are not. I think we're the highest percentage of members in the district that are Paul Harris, but we have a couple of members that are not.
Okay.
2 or 3.
Okay, I know you're real close. So that's 100%, and thank you very much to you and your club members for your generosity. 100% of the members in the club are members of the Paul Harris Society. So that's what that is. And the district actually has a Paul Harris Society Club recognition that we award. Larry, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. This should be pretty simple for a lot of clubs, and I think most clubs just don't even know that it exists. So if your club itself were to donate $1,000 annually to the foundation, we would recognize your club as a Paul Harris Society Club. We have a nice banner that we bring and present, And it's probably a really simple thing for most clubs to do, unless you're a very small club. But most clubs, I think, have that ability, probably through their fundraising efforts, to donate $1,000 annually to the foundation. I would hope, I know a lot of us have charities in our lives that we're fond of, but I would just hope that maybe the Rotary Foundation would be up there as one of your top charities that you're fond of giving to. So it's an easy way to do it. And if anyone wants to become a Paul Harris Society Club, I can definitely give you some more information about that.
Okay, and Gordon Reynolds, Orange Park Sunrise is a Paul Harris Society Club. Way to go. Woohoo! Top 3 per capita clubs. Top 3 per capita is the top 3 per capita giving to the Rotary Foundation annual fund, and that takes simply the total amount of all of the gifts that come in to the Rotary Foundation annual fund from your club members, divided by the number of members you have. And I think we're going to hand out some awards for the top 3 per capita clubs later on today. So you want to make sure you stay tuned for that. Questions? We're good?
We're good.
Few more minutes. So how can you learn more? Ask your club's Rotary Foundation chair or foundation guru, as I like to call them. Ask a member of the district foundation team to come out and be a guest speaker at your club. Or if you need help with reading some reports, that's why we're here. So call on any of us. Attend the district grant management seminars. To qualify for applying for a district grant, you must attend both of those seminars. One goes more through the application process, and the other goes more through once the grant has been approved, the all of the documentation and receipt, record keeping, and so forth. There is also a plethora of information on Rotary.org. There's some great webinars. If any of you have not been to the Learning Center, I invite you all to check that out to learn more about the Rotary Foundation and actually more about Rotary in general. There's some really great sessions on there that you can sign up for at your own timeline. So in summary, guys, this is your money. The Rotary Foundation are great stewards of your money, great stewards of the world's money. And as Larry had indicated before, we have one of the top ratings in Charity Navigator, and that's because we are so careful with the money that is entrusted to us. And that is your money that comes back to us after 3 years, and that you can use for district grants, or if you want to apply for a global grant, I encourage you to do that. But we can do so much good. And I know our communities, is great need in our communities today, more than ever. So please consider applying for a district grant. We'd be happy to walk you through that. Any questions on district grants, see Tim, myself, or Jonathan. And really, we are doing our jobs to make the world a better place, and the Rotary Foundation is our mechanism in which to do that. So I will open it up for any more questions that you may have. And this is some contact information for Larry and myself.
Lori would like to know if your presentation would be available to her.
I can absolutely make it available. Lori, send me an email. There's my email address is right there. And the foundation team is available. November is Foundation Month. It's a great opportunity to have a foundation speaker. If you have some openings, we can either Zoom in or we can come in person, depending on who's coming and what our comfort level is. Anything else? Alrighty. That is it. We finished a couple minutes early, so stretch your legs, because our next session coming up, I think, is a plenary session that we're going to at 11:15. We're going to hear from our End Polio Now Chair, Mike McGovern. So you're not going to want to miss that. So take a break, and we'll see you back in a little while. Thank you all.
Great timing, Jeanette.
Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Great job, Larry. Thank you for your help. Tim, thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Great job.